Hi everyone, it's me again. Good to see you all after 5 months, I think. For those newcomers, please pardon my accent. I'm from Malaysia, so my funny Malaysian accent might appear peculiar to you. So just bear with me for this half an hour, and hopefully it's just half an hour. Yeah. So good morning once again, and happy Mother's Day. To keep it short, there's only one point in this sermon today. So throughout the entire sermon of this 30 minutes, I will take some time to develop the case, so just bear with me, okay? Bear with me. Right, just look at the picture. It's a small picture. For those who have not looked at the big one, I would like you to guess what is in the picture. Take a guess. UFO? Yes. Yes, UFO. It looks like UFO, yeah? Okay. The inside of an UFO being by the ET, where you meet the ETs, right? Any other things apart from UFO? A library. A library. It is. Yes, indeed, it is a library somewhere. I think I searched. I Googled something called extravagant library around the world, and this came out as one of them. And I thought, wow, a library like that. As if you remember, last time when I preached, I used a clip from Star Wars. To me, this library is like walking into the world of Star Wars, like boarding an UFO starship. Wow, imagine having a reading experience in this library. It would be nice, isn't it? Now, take a look. And then the next picture. What about this? What about this? This is a bookstore, isn't it? It's a bookstore, yeah? If you were to buy a book, where would you prefer it from? From the bookstore, not the library, yeah? Yeah, we buy books from a bookstore, isn't it? But in terms of appearance, what I would like to say is it's such a big contrast. One is really magnificent, extravagant, beautiful, attractive. Whereas on the other hand, the bookstore is just a small bookstore, unassuming, a normal one, yeah? And this bookstore is located somewhere in a Middle Eastern country. It mostly sells English books, Chronicles of Narnia, something like that, okay? By its look, I would say it's very hard to say it's very attractive or appealing to the customers, okay? If there is someone from the marketing sector around us, is to offer some advice, I think one of the advice would be to just do some cosmetics improvements to the store. Change some colors to make it more attractive so that it could sell more books, isn't it? I'm not saying that it's not nice, it's just normal, okay? It's just normal, it's not that appealing and attractive. And actually, that's how our society works, isn't it? To improve on sales, to improve on things, one of the ways is to be more attractive. To be more attractive in appearance and to be more eye-catching. So when like you invite a pastor or invite a speaker to come over here, you wouldn't like him to wear just normal t-shirts, isn't it? The suit, maybe? Some attractive colors, gel the hair in a more appropriate way, shave off the unnecessary facial hair, something like that. Nothing to do with the sermon, nothing to do with the message, nothing to do with the preaching, but just by the appearance itself is one of the quickest way. And in the passage today, this is what Absalom did in his public profile. Now, before we go into chapter 15, it's best to read something right before chapter 15, because right in chapter 13, Absalom made his first entrance into the story. Then that story is related to Amnon violated his sister Tamar. And at that moment, after Amnon violated and raped Tamar, Absalom did not take immediate revenge. Instead, he waited for 2 years. Waited for 2 years and then have a well-planned assassination to kill Amnon. And then, right after the murder, he escaped to Talmai, son of Ammihud, king of Geshur. This a mouthful of Hebrew words. Why Geshur, you think? Because his mother is Talmai's daughter, which means Absalom is the grandson of the king of Geshur. And during David's reign as king of Israel, Israel never went to war with Geshur because they are related. And that's why the plan to flee to Geshur is highly calculated. It's a very clever move. And he stayed there for 3 years. And after all that 3 years, the text did not give us any explanation. David's troubled heart about death of Amnon was consoled. He was okay. His retribution towards Absalom is absolved for no reason. We don't know why. It's just okay now. And then in chapter 14, what we see is that David's general Joab knew that David misses Absalom. But when one speaks to a king, one cannot be too blunt and too clear or too direct because he's the king. You just can't spell out what the king has in his mind, okay? But at the same time, one must let the king speak his mind to let his thought come out, but also not too directly. So Joab brought in a wise woman into the scene, a woman of Tekoa, and let her speak to David. In asking about her family and seeking David's counsel or for a judgment, something like that. But in reality, if we look at chapter 14, we know that it is through the words of this woman that David is allowed to have the occasion to pronounce his pardon for Absalom. And with his pardon for Absalom announced, Absalom can come back to Jerusalem. Right? That's what happened in chapter 14. And then, when he is back, something very interesting in the text came out. It is a description of appearance. In 2 Samuel chapter 14:25, it says, "In all Israel there was not a man so highly praised for his handsome appearance as Absalom. From the top of his head to the sole of his foot there was no blemish in him." Now talk about being handsome. Right? There are a lot of handsome men and dads over here. Being handsome is one thing. Without blemish is another thing. Alright? Like Tony Leung Chiu, right, is quite handsome, but just not tall enough, okay? We might about the height, something like that. To me, I'm not sure about the lady, but to me, a handsome man who's without blemish is Kim Seng-mo, Takeshi Kaneshiro. 10 years ago. Yeah. Wow, how can a man look like that? Or to those in the Western world, maybe Keanu Reeves is one of them. I'm not sure about your choice. Every one of us has our most handsome man around the world. Reverend Low, who's your most handsome man apart from yourself? Of course, to the ladies, maybe it's your husband. Maybe it's your husband. I don't know. But we have to remember, when description of someone's appearance appeared in the Old Testament, it plays a part in the narrative. Moses is good looking. David is good looking. And all this good looking plays into the story. Because Moses is so good looking that the 3 women around in chapter 2 did not just throw him into the water. They wanted to save him because he was good looking. Alright? The looks play a part. And here, Absalom is without blemish. And let's wait until chapter 15 and see how this appearance helped him. Alright? Because handsome is very important. When he has looks, he already has a very good starting point. Because a handsome appearance means it's easier to accept what is being said. An ugly man said something, and the handsome man said the same thing to you. I think whatever they say about the handsome man will gain more acceptance. Likewise for the men, when a pretty, beautiful lady compared to a normal-looking lady say the same thing to us, it bears different power. Okay? So if Absalom needs something to get things done, he is at a very good starting point. So let's bear it in mind. And then, apart from looks, Absalom is also an eloquent man. He is a man who is so powerful in his speech that since his emergence in the book of Samuel up till at the end of chapter 14, he speaks 5 times in chapter 13, verse 20, 26, 28, and then chapter 14, 30, and 32. And every time Absalom speaks, his plans advances, which means in the story itself, whatever he says happens. Okay, in chapter 13, it's related to killing Amnon, and in chapter 14, we see that when he speaks, after he speaks to Joab, we know Absalom become close to the king. Okay, because in chapter 14, he was brought back to Jerusalem, but when he returned to Jerusalem, he was quite a bit distant from King David, and after he speaks, he gains distance, a closer distance to King David. So from this chapter, these 2 chapters, we can see that Absalom is a good-looking man, an eloquent man, a capable man, and a strategic man. Now, with all this profiling built, here comes our passage today. In our passage today, chapter 15, basically, Absalom did 3 things. First, he made a chariot for himself, and then he enhanced the chariot scene with 50 men running before him. So let's think about this. Having a chariot itself is already unusual enough, extravagant. But then why the 50 people running before the chariot? Why? 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 Why would he do that? One thing is to attract, to be eye-catching. There's a chariot going around. That's not enough. Let's have a group of 50 men running before the chariots to make some noise, to be eye-catching, to be attractive. It's visually attractive. Not at least, it grabs attention. That's the part of publicity, isn't it? There's no such thing as bad publicity. There's only publicity. As long as it gets attention, it serves its purpose. Imagine a citizen of Jerusalem, whether he likes or she likes quiet life or not. When there is a chariot going around and then there's 50 people running before it, at least that person will look at, what's going on? What's going on? And once that person look at the chariot, and then he will look at a man who is so handsome that is without blemish. Imagine us in the modern days. There's Tsui Baptist Church, right? Right at the entrance, there's a Rolls Royce driving slowly, passing by, and then there is 50 motorcycles at the front. And then we'll say, come on, this is a church. Just stay there, bear lower profile. And then we look at the car, inside the car. Whoa, Keanu Reeves, right? The entire thing is okay. Just ride a little bit slower. I want to take some selfies, take some photos. So the visually eye-pleasing scene is attractive, and it's actually Absalom's path of strategy to promote himself. And then, once after this plan, he moves on to his second plot. The second item is he rising up early in the morning and then standing on the path of the city gate. Back then, Central Plaza or Marketplace wasn't a developed idea yet. So the city gate is the place for commerce, administration, daily life, and perhaps legislative issues. It is important. And more importantly, city gate is where the people will come in and go out. People will definitely pass through that place, whether in or out. And on this matter, Absalom is really hardworking. He wakes up early and he just did one thing: talk to people. Now what he did is just not talk to one or two people. The text says he talks to everyone. The phrase kol ha'ish in Hebrew means everyone. So whoever has a case to present, he gets in touch with them and then he asks questions. And if we look closer, the conversation between him and the people follows a template. It starts with a greeting and knowing one vital, important information. And that is the information of the man's tribe. Which tribe are you from? And then the man will answer, I am from one of the tribes of Israel. Okay? That basically shapes out the first part of the conversation. And then Absalom continues to speak, and he affirms positively about the case. But then he also raises one question, he raises a doubt that whether the king will hear his case. And the king, might not hear your case, but if your case were to given to me, I will certainly give you a good judgment. I will act on your behalf. So let's think about his strategy here. He talks to people, and then he affirms the other party, but then he removes the kingly figure in his speech, and then he put himself onto that position. And he says, I will act on your behalf and act positively for you. Now imagine that. If I were to carry on to talk like this to you, you will not be persuaded. But imagine Tsim talking to you, the ladies. Or Keanu Reeves talking to you, Jonah. It will be quite appealing. It will be very compelling and persuasive because he's a charming person. Again, he's not just any charming person. He is David's son. He is a prince. When a prince talks to you, a good-looking prince, the most handsome prince talks to you, the entire case is a different thing. It feels good. Okay, it feels good. And then the narrator comes in verse 6b, and he says, and so he stole the hearts of the people in Israel. And on this verse, we know that Absalom built his network successfully. And it took 4 years to do that. He is a patient man. He is a strategic man. He does not rush things. 4 years he did that. Okay? Then immediately after this success, his next step is to put on a request to King David and say, let me go to Hebron because I made a vow to Yahweh. Now I need to go back and offer sacrifices to Adonai. Now, why Hebron? Because Hebron is the place where King David was crowned king. It was a historical site with meanings and significance. But then going to Hebron also means taking himself away from King David, to allow himself the room to have a political coup. And then the excuse or the reason he raised to David is what we call that, a thing that David cannot reject because the request is related to religious matters. He wants to go to Hebron to offer sacrifices to Adonai, who is King David, to reject such a request. So whether David sensed there is something wrong or not, based on what Absalom said, King David basically cannot reject him, because in the Mosaic law, when one made a vow before Adonai and he realized offerings must be made to Adonai again. So again, we could see that Absalom is very strategic in his maneuvers. And then he just went to Hebron. There, we say that once away he's from Jerusalem, he is away from the king. And there he sends spies to all the tribes of Israel. Remember when he talked to the people passed by the city gate? Which tribe are you from? And then we know he has built a network all around Israel, that he gained support and fame to all the tribes of Israel. And this is, after 4 years, this is when he played his cards. All right? sent messengers throughout the tribes of Israel to say, Absalom is made king in Hebron. Now this is a political coup to seize the throne. Now any plan to seize the throne is dangerous. There's no trial and error. There's no trial case. Let's do a draft version. Run a draft version first. There's no thing as such. He must success at that one go, isn't it? But then, Absalom is a very clever person, isn't it? There is an insurance plan he put into place, and that is the 200 people who did not know what he was planning. They just went with Absalom, knowing nothing, to offer to Adonai. Now, with this group of 200 alongside Absalom, it will appear that to the people at Hebron, Absalom has a large group of people coming with him from Jerusalem. He must have support, isn't it? And that adds to the persuasiveness or legitimacy to those in Hebron. And that's why we can say that Absalom has an insurance in play. And even if the coup fails, this group of 200 could be, I'm just thinking, could be held at hostage if his plans fail at Hebron, okay? No matter how, I think this group of 200 is a highly, calculated move, okay, for his coup. Now, throughout all these three moves, at the very last, he managed to team up with David's counselor, one of the cleverest men in the Samuel narrative. Okay. Now, from these three colors, these three-part moves, we can see that there is packaging, promotion, self-promotion, and strategic is involved. And all this strategy is to have Absalom achieve that. Look at me. Look at me. I'm handsome. I'm eloquent. Not me, Absalom. And I'm clever. I'm strategic. I'm charming. It's the visual effect. Whether the talks or the appearance at the city gate, all is to build up his fame and relationship. All of them. All of them. I'm thinking, are churches very different from Absalom? Bigger buildings, larger groups, more pastors, and pastors with doctoral titles. And this doesn't suffice now. Master of Theology doesn't suffice now. You must have a PhD attached to the reverend title, Reverend Doctor. Why is that? Why is that? I'm just amazed by sometimes what our mind think. But it is undeniable that we live in Hong Kong, we live in cities, and this is a very highly competitive society. We are accustomed to be successful and to be famous and to be attractive. Hence the building must be tall and big. The renovation must be beautiful. There must be an organ in the church. A piano is not enough. A grand piano is not enough, let alone an upright one. Those are for the poor people. Okay, we must have the grand piano and then an organ. We must have all this. Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Is it because if we don't do this, we will fail, we will be forgotten, we will be abandoned, or we will be fired? I'm asking, who holds the authority? Who is holding the authority to eliminate any church, or eliminate any Christians, or eliminate any pastors? Whose attention are we striving for? Absalom is striving for the attention for all Israel. How about the church? Whose attention are we striving for? Why are we shouting, look at me, look at me, look at our church? What are we yearning for? Where do our sense of security comes from? Where? I don't know. But let's remember, even though Absalom can do all this look at me strategy successfully, in verse 12, the narrator says is a conspiracy to the throne. That is the narrator's verdict of Absalom's plan for the last 11 verse. Is a conspiracy. He is very influential and powerful in the story. But then, to the narrator of the book of 2 Samuel, every king in the book, including Saul, in Samuel, King Saul and King David, they are both chosen and anointed by someone else, but not Absalom. He was never anointed by anyone, right? And we see that in the closest occasion that the name Absalom is attached to the name Yahweh occurs in 2 places only, where he uses the name of Yahweh as an excuse to go to Hebron for his political coup. And the second occasion is where Adonai will send a plague, or not just plague, but plagues to him to punish him. That is the only occasion, 2 occasions where Absalom is connected to the word Adonai. Not a king, but punishment. All right? Of course, Absalom is close to the throne in the story to himself and to the supporters. But to the narrator, there was never the word king attached to Absalom. So to the narrator, what he did is a conspiracy. And to the narrator, to the storyteller, he is never king. All the things he did, the chariots, the group of 50, all the standing in city gate listening to cases, he is never related to being a king in the story. He cares about his performance just like us. We care about performance, our looks, our fame, our branding, our reputation. But Absalom is not in tune with God's plan. My reflection is, am I in sync, or am I in tune with God's plan in Hong Kong? Not the world, it's too grand. Or am what I'm doing just all my calculated move, like coming to a church to preach in English, and then another occasion I preach in Cantonese, and on some other occasion I preach in Mandarin just to showcase my language skills, something like that, to build up my profile? Am I doing all these other things for myself? To end this sermon, I would like to bring our attention back to the bookstore. No time for that part. This bookstore is located in a Middle Eastern country. It is a Christian bookstore. It is not eye-catching. Even the location of this bookstore in the shopping mall itself is in a quiet corner. Not the best place to rent. Maybe the cheaper rent might be the reason, but then not the best place. So what would you do to improve the store? What would you do? To a better place? More renovation to be more attractive? I don't know. But remember, this is a Christian bookstore in a Middle Eastern country. That means this particular bookstore provides an access to the Christian Bible in an Islamic country. This is the bookstore where an Islam or Muslim can gain access to the Christian Bible. A Muslim can read about Jesus Christ at this particular bookstore. I had the privilege to help out there for about a week, and I saw children from the surrounding countries passing by who had never heard of Jesus Christ before. But when they passed through the bookstore, they could buy the Chronicles of Narnia. And we know that when one reads the Chronicles of Narnia, one reads the great lion, Aslan, one is brought closer to the story of Jesus. Now imagine that. And I also saw adult men going back and forth every day in this bookstore without buying anything, but reading the Bible. And this bookstore is in a quiet corner, I saw people come around on the small table and a few chairs to rest and chat. And I saw the store runner pray with a woman who had experienced and being oppressed by her family. And she became a Christian. Now, a Christian bookstore in an Islamic country, does it need to be attractive at all? Does it need to have a Star Wars theme-like renovation? I don't think so. And one last thing, really the last thing. The store runner is a sister from Scotland who was about 50 years old when I met her. He's a part of the missionary team. Her team, the missionary team she was in, has about 7 other missionaries. All those are highly educated and very strong opinion, with strong opinions, competent, and degrees and titles. But this sister she said this to me: I'm just a hairdresser from a salon in Scotland, a small town in Scotland. But then the missionary field officer put her in charge of her team. What she shared with me is that she does not have the competence or abilities to lead. All she can do is listen, pray, and reduces the tension among the team. That's all. And this is an unassuming bookstore letting people in an Islamic country to read the Christian Bible and books. This is where an unassuming sister accompanying oppressed and violated woman. This is the place where I saw a very normal, ordinary lady befriended a group of Middle Eastern grandpas in Starbucks talking about Jesus. This is the place where the gospel spread through. An unassuming bookstore and an unassuming sister. There is no chariots. There is no 50 people running around. There's no standing in the city gate. But then, this is where the truth of Christ-loving people is shared in an Islamic country, touching one by one. All I could recall of the sister is her age and her grayish short hair. And her name, I don't remember. But I remember what God did through her. And I think all the mothers, you did a very similar thing. In your ordinary, unassuming love for your children, may we all learn from the mothers doing the very same thing in our community. And God bless us.